Welcome to the Straight from the Source's Mouth podcast. Frank talk about sex and dating.
Hello, Tamara here. Welcome to the show. Today's guest is Padmini Pandya, who has the YouTube channel Pieces of Miss Minnie. And we'll be talking about all things dating, including the apps. Thanks for joining me, Padmini.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Yes, I love to. We've had a lot of relationship and sex stuff lately, so this will be good to have more just like regular old dating topics to talk about.
All right. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And do you want to just start out how you or why you started your channel? Like what made that happen?
You know, I had such a eclectic, very surprising, unique life that, you know, whether it's been, you know, my family background and also, you know, the places that I've lived, which have been, you know, multiple countries and continents and, you know, the things that I've done, that I had so many crazy stories in me that, you know, a lot of people encouraged me to write, and I will. I'm dabbling in it. I'm not naturally a writer, but I really gravitated towards actually telling the stories from my mouth and from my voice with, you know, the expressions and the animations that only that can convey. And so I very surprisingly, especially to myself, decided to start a YouTube channel, and it's named Pieces of Miss Minnie. And Minnie is the second half of my name, Padmini, which means lotus flower, or it's another name for the goddess Lakshmi. And I decided to do this channel basically as a way for me to just tell my stories. It was really like an art form for me. It was not a monetization strategy. It was really somehow a way for me to take all these stories that I have had so deeply in me for so many years and really bring them to light. And it's good, bad, and ugly. It's embarrassing moments, it's heartbreak, it's disrespect, it's accomplishment, and all of the above. And so, yeah, it's really been how I've been expressing myself, and I will see where it goes from here.
Yeah. I did. Well, I used to do stand up, so I had a YouTube channel for it just to post my videos, and then I transferred all that to the podcast stuff.
Nice.
But it's a lot of people have their expressions nowadays, just a matter of which channel.
Yeah, no, and I think it's actually fascinating the way we're allowed to express ourselves these days. I mean, it wouldn't have even been thought of, you know, even 20 years ago, especially 30, 40 years ago. These technologies weren't even available. So I think that's actually, you know, it's the age of Aquarius. So it is the age of communication and technology. And I think being able to express ourselves in different modalities is actually like such an interesting art form.
Yeah. And I know you used to work in tech, and then also you had a dating app at one point. So
yes.
I don't know where you want to go from here, which direction.
I mean, so I can tell, so I guess I'll tell it chronologically. So I worked in tech for, corporate tech for substantially about a decade, give or take. I lived in Asia for about a decade, and that was on the heels of my divorce at 31. And I moved to Asia, and I lived in Thailand for 2.5 years and Singapore for about 7. And I kind of that's where my career really grew. And I started off my background as an organizational psychologist and corporate strategist. And, you know, I started off with smaller companies to begin with, and then I joined a digital agency. And then when I went to Singapore, I was running corporate strategy. And from there, I had about 3, you know, decent sized jobs with some pretty big, multinational tech companies. I burned out in, when I was about just approaching 40. I had been in Asia for almost a decade. I was by myself. I had dated, you know, men from around the world because these are very international markets. And learned a lot and also, made some weird mistakes. I think some of them would have been inevitable since I was married during my 20s. I really only started dating as an adult in my 30s. So that was also like a steep learning curve. And I didn't do it in America, I did it in Asia. So that was its own, also like reality show. Like I hadn't been single in my 30s, let alone, waking up in Bangkok. Like that was its own, that could be a mini series right there. But I figured it out, and then again in Singapore. But and I have a multinational background, so in one respect it suited me well. But like there was a lot to also learn, and while I don't regret leaving my marriage, I think the man I married was a substantial, respectable man, and very, very few men, actually none of them thus far, have ever compared to him, which is why I've never been remarried again. And so anyway, when I moved back to the States, which was around COVID, I also very impulsively, well, there were two impulses. One was coming back to the States and trying to date on dating apps was utterly bizarre. I had realized that actually dating in Asia was far more dignified, and dating in America was really quite rough around the edges. And I had been matched with a number of men who I would, philosophically, intellectually, politically have nothing in common with. And I realized like how ridiculous a lot of these dating apps were, that they only really matched people literally based on you are breathing and have a beating heart, they are breathing and have a beating heart, you are within a 5-mile radius, meet. And it's like, under what circumstance would that be an occasion to really like meet somebody? Like that's not enough in common. And so after being matched with some utterly ridiculous men, like in their muscle tees at the gym taking selfies and just thinking like, what on earth is going on? I had an idea with a friend of mine to basically start a dating app. And really we were thinking like, what is a common denominator? And I had known him well in Singapore. He was the MD of China while I was running corporate strategy for one of the tech companies. And we had become very good friends, and he is South African. And so he moved back to Cape Town about 6 months before I moved back to America. So we were both going through our own reverse culture shock. And we were both single and really having a hard time figuring out where our place was in technically our home country, but, largely unrecognizable once you've been an expat for so long. And so that was where the idea came up. And so it was a dating app for empathetic people who care about charitable causes, because when we really looked at it, it felt like, dating a solid relationship has to be built on shared values. And while there are a number of values that are, relevant and applicable, we felt like empathy was a very good indication of having a lot in common, because the lack of empathy has been, to the detriment of a number of relationships I've been in, and I bet a number of relationships we've all been in. And then we thought, charity is a good proxy for empathy. And so it was a dating app that basically like we were going to raise money for charities, host kind of like singles events for people who care about charitable causes, and parties and fundraisers, and also connect people romantically and hopefully even just, platonically and friendship wise, and start building communities between like-minded people. A lot happened in LA and I also decided to move to LA, which was, not one of my best decisions that I've ever made. And, during the time I was there, not only was it a brutal learning curve because I was new to America, and, having really left, when I left for Asia, I was in South Florida. And so I really didn't know the West Coast, let alone California, and let alone LA, which is its own entire beast. And so that I bit off more than I could chew for a number of reasons. And then also my ex-husband passed away while I was there, and that really knocked my knees out from under me. And I realized, while I cared about the cause, I couldn't, I needed more time for myself before I tried to attempt something so substantial.
Hi, everyone. Sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to point out that there is a send us a text message at the very beginning of the description, and you can use that to send an anonymous question or comment. So I'd really appreciate it. All right. Thanks. Yeah, that makes sense. I know. Well, I was going to say it's similar to when I had an ex that was going to get married to someone else, and that was like kind of rocked me at first, because you're like, it was finally like really over. I mean, obviously death is even more severe and over, but yeah, just like losing someone like that. But yeah. And then, so yeah, my sister and her friends all used to live in LA, never met guys till they moved away, and then they all got married after. LA, so.
Yeah. LA is cursed for 100 reasons. That that being towards the top of the list.
Yeah, yeah. But then, like, you have thoughts on dating in general, like dating over 40, like you said, just the apps. And did you ever find a way to go about it a little more?
Ironically,
happily?
I have been off of apps. Even though I'm technically on them, I'm really not participating. Actually, this past year, I have really been by myself. And it's been an incredibly healthy, productive, happy, like, social year. Like, I started as a hermit, but like, actually, I really went into hermit mode probably like last summer. And now I'm coming, I'm certainly very much, have come out of it. But I don't know if I have the appetite or the stamina for that nonsense anymore. And I say that understanding that I am probably passing up some pretty interesting men who I might meet on them. But at the same time, I have met plenty of interesting men. And I have been there and done that. And, it all comes to time, the amount of time you want to allot to something like that, and the dates and everything, which just like, I have stuff to do. I have things to accomplish. So like, that is obviously a trade-off that you have to be like particularly mindful and picky about. And also at this point, I'm just like, I'm leaving this up to God and the universe. I'm like, clearly my participation has not been necessary or productive, like clearly, like, I have not, like, so I'm like, you know what? God in the universe will bring my man, my champion to me, and he will say he was sent by them, and it will work out.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have taken like breaks and or just stopped altogether. And everyone's so sick of the apps. They're saying like apps are like going to go away, and I don't know if that's true.
I don't think they're growing. They're definitely not, like, they're until that model. And that's why I wanted to host like the fundraising parties for charities, because I was like, until that model, because you're forced to have this very insipid, personal yet impersonal conversation with a complete stranger just because you both happen to be single and within a certain like mile radius of each other. And it's so awkward and it's so exhausting. And also, like, the intentions, like, built into the business models of those companies, there was actually no incentive for them to really put that much technology or science or data and analysis. Like, it was not in their best interest to put the effort into really figuring out compatibility. And to be fair, I'm not even sure it can be figured out, let alone for a meeting in person. I think there's too much looks-wise, hormonally, communication-wise, mannerisms, whatever, like, until you meet someone in person, and then you can read their energy, you can read the auras, you can read the vibration, depending on, like, your psychic abilities, you can, do a bunch of other things. Then I think, but, like, until you actually meet that person in person. So unless the business model of those apps is to basically drive in-person meetings and be somewhat at least like, have some foot in the door as far as like really figuring out compatibility, which is super hard.
Yeah.
I don't see them growing, and I think actually a number of them are going to be shrinking. I think their best days are behind them.
Yeah. Have you heard of Pitch a Friend? It's a new thing, fairly new. It's like you literally do a PowerPoint presentation for a friend of yours that's single, and like all the single people are in a bar together, and you like give the presentation while they're there, and like people can know who they are and go up to them later if they want.
I've heard of it. I've never been to
Yeah.
one. I'm going to have to look for one here. It looks hysterical and fabulous.
Yeah, I've seen them. There's definitely here in the DC area, and I've seen other cities obviously too. But yeah, I mean, and more stuff like that is coming on, just in meetups, of course, or just where you're just out and about with people doing the same stuff you like.
Yeah, it needs to be in person. Like, this is the point where like we think technology bridged us. And to a certain extent, yes, maybe it opened up the sample size, but actually the real human interaction, the real chemistry, the flirtation, the eyes, the pheromones, like the wit, the charm, that is not to be replicated on the phone. And really, like, it when it's there, and you only know it in person. Like, as much as technology has like exponentially evolved, and we have lost our breath trying to keep up, this is the part of human interaction that is still not evolved away or been replaced by technology. It cannot be replaced.
Yeah, and one technique I did here, you just get your hair done, get all dressed up, and then have the guys come to you, like wait at one restaurant, do it like on the hour, where different ones come in.
Be dating, but longer.
But you're just, or even like, just say only like 30 minutes or something. But yeah, like you let them come to you, and you only dress up once and get your outfit done. Do all that once.
No, and I think the thing is, it's not that there haven't been better ideas. It's actually just the barrier of entry. Like, the dominant players right now are just like, they have had such enormous war chests just for marketing dollars, really, that, and the thing is that, like, for any of these apps to be really effective in any given city, in any given like radius, you have to have a critical mass of, I hate to say users, but customers, potential, like, people who are using the app. So it's like, it's not something, it really needs to scale very, very quickly and quite dramatically to give everybody enough choice that suits them. Otherwise, like, and that takes like a lot of dollars. And so there are like some very, even if they're a bit antiquated, they're dominant players, and they just have like the war chest of finances that like newer players. Like, I think there are actually a lot of really good ideas out there, but this is one of those things that it doesn't, if you're using like a project management, app, it doesn't really matter if you're the only user. As long as the functionality is there to service your needs, you're fine. You don't care if they have 10 customers or 10 million customers. But for a dating app, it's actually quite difficult, because like, you need the critical mass of people to make it broad enough, to make it valid enough to service a large enough market. And that's tough.
Yeah. I used to joke that if we had like a national breakup day where everyone, like a lot of people are not happy in their relationships, but they just stay, so they don't want to be alone. But if everyone would just break up, like we could pick one day, and then there'd be a bigger pool for everyone to pick from.
That is genius. I love that. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, I called it National Breakup Day. So,
and every like 2 years, there should be like a National Divorce Day, so they have more time to think about it.
Yeah, and they do say actually, like when you're in a relationship, you could be like, "All right, let's do this until this date, and we'll talk again if we want to make sure we keep going or something." So,
I think. I would have objected to that in the past, and now I'm like, actually, that saves everybody a lot of time.
Yeah, like we're gonna revisit it, and we both have to agree or both disagree.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
But one of the questions is, what's the best part of a breakup? I know we haven't talked really about that, but like, what have you learned from a breakup? Or
I have often really glowed up after a breakup, which is hilarious. And I don't expect to, but it's happened enough now that like I'm not surprised when it happens. I feel like, by the time you're breaking up, that person has already acted a fool. Like you're not missing out on anything. If anything, probably the past couple months have been exhausting. And you've been trying to make something work that shouldn't work, never should have worked, and is never going to work. And it's like once you actually like get that kind of toxicity and just exhaustion out of your life, there's so much more time for yourself. And so like I have often like I'm in better shape, I'm more social, I have new friends, I'm always trying something new. Like I actually feel like when I'm single is like the most serendipitous time of my life, when really like stuff starts to move and happen. So like now I got out of a relationship a year ago, but prior to that, I really hadn't been in like a solid, really normal, relationship for years, years. And, yeah, so I actually feel like I get more time for myself, and usually that's where like I level up professionally, spiritually, like psychologically, like it's always a good time for me.
yeah, I did the same thing. Like I had 3 relationships over a 10-year period of 3 different guys, and then after that, I started actually dating, and then I started doing stand up too because I always wanted to try it, was too scared, and finally took a class and started doing it. Like after that.
Nice.
And then of course all my stand up was about dating that I had just started doing, and my sex life and all that. So
Oh,
I
that's
saw this whole
fabulous.
thing. Yeah, and that's what all the women in the class were single, all the guys were married, so we all talked about sex, and they all talked about just
Marriage.
relationship stuff
Yeah.
or different stuff. But yeah, yeah, it's definitely it's like that's another, like a lot of people get very upset, but like you said, it's just another door opening and do all the stuff you wish you would have been doing all along, and there's always more efficiency and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And frankly, like since I got a divorce, I have spent more time single than in a relationship. The relationships have been some more significant than others, some more disruptive than others, some more emotionally relevant than others. And, so but actually, if you look at the time, I have really been single. Like if you add up sometimes dating is just takes up a lot of time because you're sort of dating, half dating, sort of, and then you start dating too many people at once. And it's just sort of like you could end up in years of sort of like half relationships and situationships and sort of popping in and out. And it's just like it's an enormous waste of time. So I certainly do not entertain that. Now I am very much like binary. I'm like it's on or it's off. That's it.
yeah, and I know we talked about your YouTube channel earlier. Is there anything you want to just kind of leave the people with, like if they go check it out, and
Yeah,
what for? Like,
certainly. So Pieces of Miss Minnie is, I tell a lot of different stories. So the tagline is I'm sharing the lessons of my life, one memory at a time. And each episode is very different. They're not chronological. And, some are embarrassing moments, some are breakups, but awesome new skills learned at the same time. Some are really, how, certain people behaved quite poorly. It is really quite an eclectic channel and frankly, like more an art than a science at this point. But please check it out if you have some time. Scroll through it. They're all very different, but the titles sort of say what they are. And I would actually really love and welcome some feedback as well as I kind of experiment with this sort of new type of storytelling.
okay. Well, I think that is a good place to wrap, unless you had like a final closing comment
No,
you want to
no,
make or
no.
something.
I really no. I really appreciate you having me on. I'm flattered.
Yeah, it's good to just, talk. Well, lots of women are having this discussion, how, and people in general, just dating is like how it is nowadays. We're all looking for something new and
It
different
is
and better.
bizarre.
And
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, we're all enduring it. All right. Well, thank you again for being on. And if you liked or loved this episode, be sure to tell your friends about it and rate it as well. And of course, follow the show too. And thank you again, Padmini.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Frank Talk, sex and dating educates.